All right, everyone, this video is about step one of the research paper. There are actually three things you need to accomplish in step one. You need to pick a topic, one of the three options that I've given you. You need to do a bibliography for the sources that I've given you that you'll need to read and analyze for your research paper, and then create author biographies about each author of your sources. So the purpose of that is really to just figure out who these people are academically and professionally, where they got their education, where they've worked, what else they've published, what their area of expertise is, and that just tells us why they are considered a definitive source or an authoritative source on this particular topic. All right, so I'm going to walk you through each step, and we'll try to be as quick about it as possible. Topic first is choosing the topic. That's the first part of this step. So let's look at the different topics that we have. Topic one, big business during the Gilded Age. This is looking at the rise of industry, the rise of corporate America, and all of the innovation and inventions and modernization that takes place during the Gilded Age, the late 1800s. Now, that's all in the plus column, right? America becomes powerful, we modernize in a lot of ways, we innovate, and we make a lot of progress in many regards. On the downside, as we've seen in a previous source analysis assignment, we also, with the rise of industry, get the rise of the urban poor. Right? Urban poverty increases as well. And this disparity of wealth shows up in a big way between the rich and the poor. And that's, of course, a negative thing. So the question really is, was this an era of progress or was this an era of greed? And that's what these historians debate, and that's what you're going to be looking at is their viewpoints and their logic and their evidence in determining which viewpoint is the most effective and why. Topic number two looks at the Great Depression, the time of economic depression in the United States during the 1930s, and President Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal, or his package of policies that he rolled out, attempting to address the problems of the Great Depression and attempting to lift America out of that depression. The debate is, were his policies effective or ineffective? Did they help the United States get out of the Depression, or did they prolong the Depression? And so that's what you're going to be looking at in the viewpoints that those authors present, and ultimately you'll be arriving at which viewpoint you feel is the most effective and why. And then topic number three is looking at the decision to drop the atomic bomb. This decision was made by President Harry Truman in August 1945. 2 atomic bombs were dropped on Japan in an attempt to bring Japan to its knees and finally end World War II. The question is, was it actually really necessary, or was the war on its way to ending anyway? What were the motivations for dropping the bomb? Was it necessary? Was it a smart policy decision based on the circumstances and based on the information they had, or was it not necessary? And so you're going to look at the various viewpoints, the debate that exists there, and ultimately make your decision on which viewpoint is the most effective based on their logic and their evidence, and why you arrived at that conclusion. So those are your three topics. Okay, so you'll choose one. That takes care of the first part of step one. Now you need to create a bibliography and author biographies. Okay, so let's look in this page for topic one. Okay, let's say you chose big business during the Gilded Age. Okay, here is your prompt. This is what you'll need to address in your paper, but here are your sources. Here's all your information for your sources, and here are all of your authors as well, right? So where you're going to get your information for your bibliography is right here, and for your author biographies is by Googling these authors and piecing together, again, a short 3 to 5 sentence author biography for each of your authors that tells me where they got their education, what their area of expertise is, where they've worked, and what else they've written, what else they've published, okay? So let's start with the bibliography. If we go back into the research paper instructions, we'll see a link here under step one, and that takes you to this page here that gives you different types of sources. A book written by a single author, a chapter or other part of an edited book where multiple authors have contributed chapters or essays to that book. A translated book, we don't have any of those in here. Ebook, we don't have any of those. Journal article, you may have as one of your sources. News or magazine article, you may have. So of the sources that I've given you to read, you will either need to pull from the news or magazine article option to get your examples of bibliography entries, from the journal article option to get your example of bibliography entries, or from the edited book or just normal book. Okay, get your bibliography entry examples here. Okay, so that's where you're looking. Any of those 4 sections based on what type of source you're looking at. Okay, so let's go back. You're going to find that link again in the research paper instructions. Let's go back into topic 1. All right, so the work that you need to do is figuring out what type of source it was. Was it from a book, or was it from a magazine or a journal or newspaper? Okay. If it has a volume number and a month or even day date, then you know it's coming from a journal article or a magazine or newspaper. Okay, that's your key there. If it doesn't have a volume number or a more detailed date that includes the month, not just the year, and it only includes a year, then it's a book. Okay, so if it only includes a year, it's a book. If it includes volume number or issue numbers and a month in addition to a year, then you're looking at an article of some sort. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. But Google these sources and figure out what they are. Google commentary, okay, and figure out, is that a journal or is that a magazine? Okay, once you answer that question, then you'll know which of these to look at. You're either going to go to the journal option right here and use this as your example, or you're going to go to the magazine article option and use this as your example. Okay, so Google that. Do the same thing for your other sources. So Google a people's history of the United States. If it comes back that it's written by Howard Zinn, who wrote this section here, then you know that all you're doing is using the book option because it's by that same author. Okay, so you're going here and you're going to use this as your example. If you were to Google a people's history of the United States and it came back with a different author, someone other than Howard Zinn, or an editor, more importantly, then you would know that you're using a chapter from an edited book. And in that case, you would use this as your example. Okay, so just follow that practice for each of your sources, and then you'll know which of those source types to get your example from. Once you get your example, you're just going to plug in the information I gave you into the proper format. All right, so let's take Howard Zinn, A People's History of the United States, 1492 to present. Okay, I can tell you right now that this is a book written by Howard Zinn, so we're just going to use the book option. All right, we don't need to include this chapter name here because he wrote this book. So where we're taking this source from is his book. Harper and Row, New York, 1980. Okay, so we're going to go back to the book option and we're going to plug in that information where this is. So instead of these authors here, it's going to say Zinn, Howard, period. A People's History of the United States, 1492 to present, in italics, period. New York, colon, the publisher, which was Harper and Row, comma, and the year, which was 1980. All right, so you're just plugging in the information that you have here, into the proper place in the proper format using that guide. Okay, so that's the second part of step 1 is the bibliography. You need to do a bibliography entry for each of the sources I've given you in your topic. And then lastly, you need to Google each of your authors here and figure out where they got their education and where they work, what their area of expertise is, and what else they've published. And if you look in step 1 here, I believe, Actually, you can find your link there. It must be in the research paper instructions. Here we go. In the research paper instructions page, you will find an example. Okay, so here's an example of a bibliographical citation. Here's an example of an author bio. Dr. Jane Smith is a professor of history at Yale University. She specializes in early American history, and more specifically on the relationships between colonists and Native Americans on the edges of the British Empire during the late 18th century. Where am I getting this information? Just from Googling this author and then finding different sources that tell me about this author. Usually historians have worked at some universities as professors, and if they have a faculty webpage from that college, from that university, that's a great place to learn about their specialization, where they got their education, what they teach, and what else they've written. Okay, but this is all you have to do for each of your authors. Okay, that's what an author biography could and should kind of look like. All right, and again, you find that in your research paper instructions page right here. So you can get those examples and that link to that citation guide right here. So pick your topic, click into your topic page, okay, look at your prompt just so you have an idea, and then create your bibliography entries and your author biographies. That's step one. If you have any questions, please post it in the coffee shop so I can answer it for everyone, or of course you can email me as well. All right.